Islam is a religion that promotes the search for knowledge in everything that we do. And in today's episode, we look at the Muslim contribution to science in the past, the present and the future. Assalamu alaikum, I'm Fadla Adams and welcome to An-Nur, the Light. During the golden age of Islam, a time of discovery, a multitude of inventions arose thanks to the efforts of Muslim scholars, particularly in the field of maths and science. Some of their contributions have laid the foundations for scientific development. In today's episode, we look at the role that Muslims have played in science in the past and how they continue to contribute to this exciting field of discovery. Let's find out more.
Seek knowledge from the cradle to the grave. This is one of the most popular sayings of the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. The first verses revealed to him were about the importance of literacy in order to gain knowledge, and that is why Islam is such a progressive religion. Muslims have contributed to science more significantly than is recognized and continue to contribute to scientific development today.
When we look at the Quran is not a book of science, but yet we find there are numerous references on scientific phenomena, subjects such as astronomy, cosmogony, botany, embryology, and so on. Now, the Quran exhorts man in numerous places to study nature, to undertake scientific inquiry and observation, to understand how this universe was created, did it have a creator, what is the purpose of creation, so that he can come to know his creator. And by studying nature, man comes to realize that the greatest evidence for the existence of God is the study of nature. So science is a field by which man understands how the universe functions and what it is made up of. However, when it comes to scientific facts, there is not a single scientific fact that is contradicted by a Quranic verse. In fact, there are numerous verses in the Quran which talk about, for example, the origin of the universe. Allah tells us that we created the universe from a single point which was exploded. And this is consistent, for example, with the Big Bang Theory. So we see that there is total harmony in terms of the facts of science, but not necessarily with what is theoretical and which can undergo change over periods of time.
The golden age of Islam between 700 and 1700 CE brought forth many discoveries by Muslim scholars, especially in terms of science, mathematics and astronomy. There are 22 lunar craters named after Muslim scientists, most of them astronomers and mathematicians. The words algebra, algorithms and alkali are all derived from the Arabic language, and even the numbering system we use today comes from the discoveries of Muslim mathematicians. Without the flourishing of science in Muslim lands, the world may not have had the advancements it has today.
The word algebra comes from the Arabic word jabara, which means to set, to join something. In mathematics, well, the father of mathematics is Musa al-Khwarizmi. He was a person that developed the science of algebra. He also took the zero from the Indians and he gave it a place value. He was able to appropriate a mathematical value to the zero, so that today we know if we see 130, we know it's 130. If we see 1300, we know it's 1300. So he was the first person to do that. Muslims also, mathematicians, they developed integers, they initiated trigonometry, geometry, decimal fractions, square roots, and the present, in mathematics today, we use the x in equations. It's very surprising, this actually comes from Umar Khayyam, who is popularly known in the West more as a poet, but he was a brilliant mathematician and astronomer as well. You must look at it from a historical point of view. You must see that the Arabs generally were an unlettered people. There were very few people in Arabia who could read and write. And once, when Islam came into being, and do remember the first wahi and the first word of the first revelation was Iqra, to read, to recite, to proclaim. And this gave impetus and this spurred Muslims in the pursuit of knowledge.
MTE Studios, a Cape Town-based themed architecture and edutainment consultancy, have produced an exhibition called Sultans of Science. It is a global touring exhibition which celebrates the contribution of Muslim scholars in science, maths and technology during the golden age of the Islamic world. The exhibition demonstrates that many notable inventions attributed to Western scientists were in fact first made by Muslim scholars.
Sultans of Science is a major travelling exhibition developed by MTE Studios here in Cape Town, which talks about Islamic science being rediscovered and shows how Islamic science laid the foundation for the Renaissance in Europe and also for the Industrial Revolution. The exhibition is about 800 square meters in floor area. It was first displayed here in Cape Town on a trial run, and over the last 4 years has been touring North America. The response has been absolutely terrific. You know, it's all about reconciling cultures, making non-Muslim people more aware of the amazing contribution made by Muslim scholars to science and technology. And I think it's hit all the right buttons. It's created significant awareness among people and made people realize that science isn't just a Western European construct. It has multicultural roots, and those roots go deep into the world of Islam.
While the Western world went through the Dark Ages, the Islamic world enjoyed a golden age of scientific discovery. Islamic physicians were centuries ahead of their time. Islamic scientists such as Al-Haytham discovered the workings of optics and the human eye, which laid the foundation for modern optics and ultimately the first camera. Islamic scholars invented algebra and made significant contributions to geometry and trigonometry. Islamic astronomers combined ancient knowledge of the stars with new theories to make significant contributions to science and astronomy.
There were some amazing engineers during that golden era of Islamic science. They include, for instance, the three Banu Musa brothers, who were at the first House of Wisdom in Baghdad in the 9th century. And Al-Jazari, who was active in the 1100s and early 1200s. He worked for the kings of Diyarbakir in eastern Turkey as it is today, and he created some of the first automatic machines or robots. And the most famous example is perhaps his elephant water clock and his castle clock, but also the musical boat. These were advanced machines for the time, which used automatic devices to keep running in the way of a modern robot. But of course they didn't have the advantage of electricity, so they had to use water power to power these early automatic machines. But they are extremely advanced for their time, and they pioneered the use of certain mechanisms which are now used in machines all over the world. I don't think that the contributions of Islamic scientists have been adequately acknowledged, but the work that we're doing and others are doing is making people far more aware of this. And I think it helps to contextualize where science came from. It didn't only come from the ancient Greeks and the Romans and the Chinese, that during this period from 650 to 1650, the major contribution came from Islamic scholars.
Muslims continue to contribute to the fields of science to this day. Dr. Imtiaz Suleiman, founder of the Gift of the Givers, a disaster relief and charity organization in South Africa, recognized a need for nutrition in struggling African countries and, with a team of contributors, came up with a natural food supplement with the potential to combat malnutrition and starvation in disaster-stricken countries and poor areas.
Sibusiso is a ready-to-eat supplement, high in energy, energy-dense and nutrient-dense. It was designed as a result of disasters all over the world. And as an added value, we have found it very beneficial in conditions where energy is required, where patients are immunocompromised. And you find it in TB, HIV, AIDS, malnutrition, and recently in cancers. The product seems to be doing extremely well benefiting people. But essentially, it's a nutrition supplement. The product has got a very unusual spiritual history. Gift of the Givers was founded in 1992, and the instruction was given by a spiritual teacher, a Sufi sheikh in Istanbul, Muhammad Safi Effendi al-Jarahi, who said, I'm instructing you, I'm not asking you. I'm instructing you to form an organization. In Arabic, the name is Waqf al-Waqifin. In English, Gift of the Givers. And this was in 1992. In 1999, I met him for the last time. And before he passed on, he said to me, my son, you must get involved in food. Now, at that time, I couldn't understand what he was talking about. To me, was it biscuits? Was it sweets? Was it something else? And every time he spoke to me, he said, you will know. And in 2003, we designed a food parcel program for government, for which they gave us 60 million rand. And in the program, we designed a food parcel, and we also set up the logistics to distribute it throughout the country. And after the program, we realized that although we were giving people this high quality branded food, they were not hungry anymore, but they still look sick. So hungry people were not hungry anymore, but in terms of their skin condition, their weight, something was not right. We left it at that. In 2004, April, I was in Malawi. And at that time, the United Nations had printed a report to say Africa's biggest problems is malnutrition, lack of iodine, lack of iron, lack of folic acid, low protein, those kind of ingredients that were missing in the food. And when I was in Malawi, I went to see a fertilizer program to do something with agriculture. And the company I went to, I suddenly found that they were involved in extrusion of soya. They were involved in food, manufacture for the World Food Program. The spiritual chef told me this in 1999. On Friday morning, on the 16th of April, when I got up in the morning, a formula was born in my head. And my spiritual teacher always told me that whatever is done through you, not by you. I'm not a dietitian. I'm not a nutritionist. I gave up medicine in 1994. I didn't even do much in terms of nutrition in the medical school. But a whole formula was born in my head. And this formula to me, was Sibusiso ready food supplement, where soya, groundnuts, and premix was put together for the benefit of people in Africa and all over the world. And in disasters, why this product is so excellent, it doesn't require water to mix, doesn't require cooking, doesn't require heating, doesn't require refrigeration. Now, in a disaster, you may have to provide a primer stove, boiling water, clean water, matches, rice, oil to cook. Here, from a plane or a helicopter, you can just drop Sibusiso and they can eat it and they can sustain themselves for days because it's so potent. 1 teaspoon is almost as potent as a whole plate of food. That's how powerful it is. It's not a medicine. It's not a replacement for medicine. It's nutrition. But medicine today has forgotten the part of nutrition and moved away from nutrition, and we need to come back to nutrition.
Sibusiso Foods, manufactured in Malawi, is an invention that has many benefits, not only for the malnourished, but for those wishing to improve their health and increase their weight. The supplement is being manufactured in bulk, and Dr. Suleiman hopes that it will grow to help even more people.
When I realized on the 16th of April 2004, that we're a charity organization. We save lives. We take people out of rubble. We send in medical teams, that carry out life-saving procedures. And that Friday morning, when this formula came to my head, I said, this is what he is talking about. Something that will benefit the human body, the human mind, that will help combat disease, not cure it, but help the body heal itself. And whatever food item we do had to be of nutritional benefit medically to deserving populations or populations in need in Africa and all over the world. And because Islam promotes healthy living, promotes that which is good, that which is right, that which benefits mankind, the Prophet came as Rahmatan lil Alameen, as a mercy unto all creation. The motto of Gift of the Givers is Khairun Nas, May Yanfa'un Nas. Best among people are those who benefit mankind, and mankind can be benefited in a million different ways. The principle is clear, benefit mankind. It doesn't tell you how. You can work out logically how you should benefit mankind. While a disaster, it's quite straightforward. It's very simple. We don't have to carry tons of, of food stuff if we not get to areas. Sibusiso has been very well used in Niger, where there was famine. We've used it in Haiti, we've used it in the floods in Pakistan, we've used it in Malawi, it's been used in Lesotho, in South Africa, in Botswana. It's been very well received in all those countries in terms of disaster itself. In South Africa, the biggest use has been with TB, with HIV, with malnutrition, and now we find a lot of people wanting it for cancers. But the real success story you can see in people who are not well. I like to see it go throughout Africa, go throughout the world. I like to see Western nations and European nations use something that has been designed in Malawi, one of the poorest countries of the world. You know what? We're always taking stuff from the northern countries, bringing them to the south. I like to see something from a poor country like Malawi, combined with South Africa, take something that is of immense value to people all over the world. I would like to see people from other nations, rich nations, who say they want to support Africa, want to support developing nations, who want to support malnutrition among children and adults all over the world, to support a product like this.
Professor Salim Abdul Karim, Chief Executive Officer of CAPRISA in KZN, along with his wife Professor Quraisha Abdul Karim, have dedicated their lives to finding ways to curb the AIDS virus in South Africa. In 2008, they made a breakthrough discovery of a microbicide gel that acts as a preventative measure against the AIDS virus in women. They have had successful trials and hope to make the gel available to the public very soon.
I undertook my first research study 32 years ago when I was a young medical student here at the Nelson Mandela Medical School. And since then, I've always seen research as the pursuit of knowledge as fascinating. I find it stimulating intellectually. I find the search for new knowledge to be very rewarding and fulfilling. CAPRISA was set up in 2002 as a not-for-profit organization involving several universities in South Africa and the US to undertake research in order to identify what's the best way to prevent HIV and to treat patients who have TB and HIV. So the CAPRISA's main goal is to try and find a way to stop the HIV epidemic. And so that's what we put most of our energy into. CAPRISA was founded by 5 institutions: the University of KwaZulu-Natal, University of Cape Town, University of Western Cape, the National Institute of Communicable Diseases in Johannesburg, and Columbia University in New York. These 5 institutions came together under a grant provided by the National Institutes for Health and created CAPRISA. I was the principal investigator and the director of CAPRISA right from the beginning. So as early as 1990, my wife and I had been undertaking research to understand the HIV epidemic in all its different manifestations in South Africa. And one of the things that became very clear to us very early in the HIV epidemic is that young women, particularly teenage women, bear the brunt of the HIV epidemic. Once that became clear to us, we decided that the highest priority for CAPRISA and our research would be to identify a way in which to protect young women from acquiring HIV. That's not an easy task, because when you look at the available ways in which you prevent HIV, they are largely dependent on men. So we did our first study of a microbicide, what was then called nonoxynol 9 film. We did that in 1994. We did a study where we asked women to insert this film, and we were trying to get a sense of whether that could prevent HIV. We subsequently went on to doing the studies, and we found that it didn't work. And so we've had disappointment after disappointment. We've been undertaking research in this field now for 17 years. Until it came to 2004, where we said we have to think differently. We have to change our mindset if we're going to solve this problem. And the change that we made was we said we have to look at antiretroviral drugs. And at that point, we were using a particular drug called tenofovir to treat TB patients who had AIDS. And so we got some experience with this drug, and we knew it was a very safe drug. So we had to find a drug that had a very good safety profile, and tenofovir fit the bill. So we then pursued tenofovir to make a gel with tenofovir and to do the studies.
The Caprisa Clinic in Durban, established by the couple, is dedicated to helping women in KwaZulu-Natal and carrying out trials with a microbicide gel that have been quite successful thus far. They hope to make the gel available to the public as soon as they can to combat the HIV and AIDS epidemic in South Africa.
If we were going to impact on this epidemic, if we were going to slow this epidemic, we needed to find a way to empower women to protect themselves. We needed to put some kind of prevention tool in the hands of women so that they could use it and they could protect themselves from getting HIV. So that's one of the reasons why in much of Southern Africa the HIV epidemic has continued unabated, because we haven't been able to stop this very high infection rates in young women. And so that's what led us on this path to try and find a way to protect women. So we've done some scenarios and we did some mathematical models to predict what kind of impact could we get from tenofovir gel. And what we've seen in these models is that if we can get sufficient numbers of women to use the applicators, we can reduce